Hello and welcome back to another video. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. This is kind of going to be like a chat video where I'm going to tell the story of something that happened to me and something that changed my life forever. I haven't really talked much about it because I was waiting to do a video about it, so now's the time. My life changed forever on April 28th, 2019. It was a Sunday morning, 10 o'clock, and I was driving home from a friend's house. I was about a mile away from my house, going southbound, and a car going northbound, the opposite direction of me, plowed into my car head on, going 110 miles per hour, and my car was hit, flipped, and rolled down into a ditch. Of course, I do not remember this happening. I do not remember seeing the car. I don't remember the impact of the crash, and this is all from what the paramedics have told me, bystanders. I want to explain how the accident happened. So as I mentioned, I was going southbound and the person that hit me was going northbound. And for the sake of this video and for legal purposes, let's just call the person that hit me X. X was driving 110 miles per hour down a pretty steep hill. I was at the bottom of the hill, and as I was starting to go up the hill, there was a little curve. So it was kind of like this. The hill was slightly increasing after the curve and it just kept going straight and straight. X was trying to change lanes, hit the median with his tire. This is the median. This is his car. His car hit it. And as he hit it, he tried to go this way to avoid going over the median. He tried to overcorrect himself by veering to the right, hit the car next to him, and bounced off and plowed straight into my car. The person's car that X skimmed, no damage at all to the person, and unfortunately I was the only unlucky person in this situation, and my life could have been taken from me. It happened to be that the accident happened right across the street from a Chinese Anglican church. So church was in session and the churchgoers heard the accident happen. A lot of people from inside rushed outside to see what was happening. And at first, they only saw X's car because that was the only car visible from the road since my car was down in the ditch below. So everyone from the church and all the cars that were driving around us when it happened went straight to X, the people in X's car, and kind of seeing what happened. X was convinced that he didn't hit another car until a very brave and inspirational person from the church heard me screaming from the ditch down below. And I don't remember any of this happening, but I was screaming for help from the embankment down below. And the person from the church came down into my car and saw me stuck in the driver's seat. Even though I don't remember this, I was conscious enough to have some sort of logical conversation saying that I was about to die. The person from the church was able to talk me into giving him my mom's phone number to call her to let her know what happened, of course. My mom wasn't home at the time. She was actually in Los Angeles, which is just 2.5 to 3 hours north of San Diego, and she had driven with a friend, so she didn't even have her car there. And my mom was in Los Angeles for a conference, and the conference was just about to start when she got the call. And as she was turning her phone on Do Not Disturb, she was literally swiping up to hit that button, she gets a call from a random number. And it must have been a mom's instinct, but she answered the call. And the person from the church explained the situation, said, "Hi, your daughter's been in a car accident. The paramedics have been called. The ambulance is on its way." And my mom lost it. In the background, she heard me screaming, fighting for my life. So she called an Uber, and she was in an Uber for 3 hours from Los Angeles to San Diego, straight to the hospital. As my mom was in the Uber going to the hospital where I was going to be transported, the paramedics were attempting to get me out of the car my car that I was stuck in. And in order to do that, they had to saw the roof off of my car, and they had to shatter whatever was left of my windshield. And they also had to cut the seatbelt that was wrapped all around me. They sawed the roof off, and they got me out of the car, and I was put on a stretcher, and I was brought back up from the ditch and brought up into the ambulance and was transported to the hospital, which was about a 15-minute drive. Something really strange I do remember is sounds. I remember hearing the blanket that was put over me when they were shattering the rest of my windshield so that I wouldn't get any more glass that was already in me. Surprisingly, I remember hearing my stepdad's voice. My stepdad had came to the accident after my mom had contacted him about what happened, and I remember hearing his voice distinctly saying, "Jenna, it's Mark and I'm here." So I arrived at the hospital, and I was brought, of course, into the trauma unit, and I was in a neck brace, and my clothes had been stripped off me. I had blood everywhere. I was screaming in pain. It was a terrible situation. At this point, I was in the trauma unit of the emergency room, and my mom was there, my dad was there, and so was my grandma. And I was unable to go straight into surgery because my blood pressure was too low due to the amount of blood that I lost and due to me being in a state of fight or flight response and my adrenaline running really high and just the overall shock that I was in. I had to wait about an hour before I was able to go into my first surgery, and I also wasn't able to be given any pain meds because, again, my blood pressure was too low and I was too medically unstable to be put on any sort of pain medication. I remember being in so much pain in the ER and just wishing that this pain would go away, and I remember yelling the F word like there was no tomorrow, and I just was in an absurd amount of pain. I wasn't aware where my pain was coming from because my whole body was just in a huge amount of pain. Every part of me hurt, and so I didn't know what injuries I had sustained. Time finally passed, and I was able to be put on a little bit of pain medications and be brought into surgery. My first surgery was pelvic surgery, and I'll insert a picture right there of my pelvis before and after the surgery. I had shattered my pelvis and had screws, nuts, and bolts put in to put me back together and to make me one piece again. My second surgery was plastic surgery. I had lacerated my chin and my lip and my scalp. So that's why I have a little bit of a dent here when I talk, and I have a little scar here. The scar used to be a lot more prominent, but with lots of vitamin E and Scar Away and Mederma, my scar has significantly decreased, but it's still there a little bit. Part of that plastic surgery was my scalp laceration, so I had to have 20 staples to put my hairline back together, and the scar has almost gone away, but you can kind of still see it, and I don't have much hair here. due to that. I also had a lot of lip issues, and to this day I do not have feeling in this part of my lip, and I can't open my mouth all the way. So those were my first two surgeries. So the accident happened at 10 a.m. and I woke up at 7 p.m. from my second surgery, and I was like, what just happened? I was in the ICU and I was so distraught about what happened. I was still in shock and I couldn't really believe it. I didn't even know what was going on. And due to my vitals and my lab results, I had an x-ray of my abdomen and my internal organs to see if everything was doing okay, and it wasn't. I had lacerated my spleen and my kidney, and I had punctured my lung, and I had an excess of internal bleeding. And of course that needed surgery again. So on day 2 of being in the ICU, I had my third surgery, which was an abdominal surgery and a blood transfusion to get all the excess blood out of my abdomen and to fix my lacerations and punctures in my internal organs. Day 3 of being in the ICU, I started to experience some knee pain, and I wasn't quite sure why, because I wasn't putting any weight on my knee. I wasn't moving my body at all. I was literally in the same position for 3 days straight in a hospital bed, and I was confused as to why my knee was constantly hurting all the time. The doctors did an x-ray and it was found out that I had torn my PCL, which is the posterior crucial ligament. So I had to have surgery to repair my knee, and I'll put a picture of that x-ray right here. So that was surgery 4 on day 3. I had 2 more days in the ICU. Luckily no more surgeries in the ICU, but I was put on a no food, no liquid diet. So for the 5 days that I was in the ICU, I had nothing but IV fluids being put into me. I was quite miserable. I was so thirsty. I was so hungry. I couldn't sleep. I was in so much pain. I was a whole entire mess. After my vitals got stable enough, I was able to leave the ICU and I was brought to a regular hospital room 1 step down, and that's where I spent the next week and a half. I was still having a very tough time with the pain. I still wasn't able to walk, do any sort of movement. I wasn't able to eat properly yet. I was drinking a smoothie on day 7, I believe, and I noticed that my back left tooth started to get a little loose, and I was like, oh God, what is it now? So I called for the nurse, and after conversations, I got an x-ray of my jaw and my tooth, and surprise, surprise, I had fractured it and I needed surgery again. I had to get my tooth drilled back into place since it was fractured in my jaw, and since it was a very important tooth, I had to have arch bars drilled onto my teeth. So that's basically like inverted braces. So I had inverted braces on the left half of my mouth for about 2 months, and it was extremely painful because again I could not eat or sustain any solid foods. So after the hospital and after kind of recovering, I got cleared to move to an acute rehab facility, which was just about 15 minutes from my house and about 20 minutes from the hospital I was at. So I got transported from the hospital to the rehab center. The whole goal of the rehab center was to reteach me how to do day-to-day activities with my limitations and learn how to walk again. Each day I was in rehab, I had about 2 hours of occupational therapy, 2 hours of physical therapy, and 2 hours of speech therapy. For occupational therapy, I was taught how to brush my teeth, how to get on and off the toilet, how to put my shoes on given my restrictions with my leg. I was taught a lot how to reframe my day-to-day doings with the temporary disability that I had. And that temporary limitation for me was I was unable to walk for 10 weeks and I was unable to do any sort of movement with my lower body, including my pelvis. So I had to be wheelchaired around a lot of places. In physical therapy, I was taught how to use my crutches correctly. I was taught how to stand up and sit down correctly with crutches. I was taught how to go upstairs with them, how to get on and off the toilet, how to stand with them, how to get in and out of the car with them. And I also was taught how to adjust myself in bed and on the couch. In speech therapy, I was taught cognitive assessments and cognitive abilities since I did suffer from a concussion, of course. So I was in rehab for a week, and then out of the blue they told me that my vitals were stable, that I was making amazing progress, and that I was able to go home. So I think I neglected to say this, but this all happened the last 2 months of senior year, so last year. And the end of senior year is when all the fun things happen. It was really hard mentally seeing all of my friends do all of the senior activities, and I was just at home doing nothing. My first week being back at home, I had different doctor's appointments every single day. And the following week was when I got all of my staples taken out. So I had about 55 staples from one hip to the next hip, sewing me back together. So I had to have those staples taken out. I had staples all over my stomach from the abdominal surgery, and I had staples all down my leg from the knee surgery. I also had staples on my scalp, but those were taken out before I left to rehab, and my facial surgery was sewn together with stitches, and I also got those out before going to rehab. As time went on, being at home on bed rest, I kind of did the same thing every single day. Woke up, my mom made me potatoes. I watched a lot of Vampire Diaries. Then 10 days before graduation, my mom and I made the decision that it would be okay for me to go back to school on a limited basis. I finished about a week's worth of school. I was able to attend some of the senior week activities with limitations as well, and then graduation happened. So for graduation, I was very nervous at first because, you know, it's like a really big walking line. Then you walk on the stage, you get your diploma, then you walk down. But then I realized, how was I able to get my diploma and hold it when I was too busy crutching myself around? The school was very nice and very helpful, and they put a ramp in the back of the stage where I could crutch onto the stage, and they handed me my diploma in a very special way where I was able to hold it, and being able to hold it with 2 fingers while I crutched down the ramp back to my seat. And I also had a special seat, and I was the only person not in alphabetical order for them calling the names because my seat had to be closest to the stage. So after graduation, I kind of went back to being at home and recovering and just waiting for the day where I was able to walk again. And about a month later, I had my appointment with my orthopedic surgeon, and I got my leg brace taken off and I was free to walk. I had taken my first steps in 10 weeks, and I'll insert that video right there. It was one of the best moments of my life. I'm never taking walking for granted ever again. After I started walking again, I went straight to doing physical therapy 3 times a week, where I was working on my pelvic floor muscles, but also how to use my knee again and my leg and get full range of motion. Shortly after that, I also got my arch bars taken out of my mouth, and I was able to eat crunchy foods again, and I was able to smile like a normal person, and life started to go on the uphill trajectory after I got my arch bars taken out and after I was cleared to walk again. So the accident changed my life forever. I mean, other than the physical limitations that I still deal with today, but the mental growth that I've had from the accident is something completely different. I now view the world as such a special place, and I try my very best not to take anything for granted, because life can be taken from you in an instant. I try so hard not to let the little things disrupt my day, and I try to view things with a positive outlook even though things can be so tough. One of the things that got me through it was knowing that I could recover and that I can work on myself to make myself the strongest person that I could be. I know it sounds weird to say, but I am so glad the accident happened, because it morphed me into a person that I never thought that I would become. I never thought that I would love life this much, and that I would appreciate the little things, and that I would make every day last, because you never know when your last day is going to be. I have gained such an immense appreciation for life itself and all the experiences that life has to offer, and the accident has honestly just shaped me into a very introspective person. I think that the accident has overall had a very positive impact on the way that I view life. Thank you so much for watching this video. I know it was very content heavy, but I'm really glad I was able to share this with you and to give you some insight on what had happened in my life and how I'm still recovering from it. So thank you so much for watching and being open to watching this, and I will see you guys next video. Bye!